Hello and welcome to Healing Within 24. Unfortunately, this evening, our guest who we have been trying to get on is not available. So allow me to introduce myself again. I'm Roy Fensom and I run Healing Within, as well as Moon and Mask, a retail and therapeutic business, and spiritual and wellness fairs. So we have a multitude of things which we go through. Now, first off, as in any week, I will start by putting my name out there so that people can see who I am. And I'm going to put up a couple of things. Please, if you have the opportunity, share with your friends and family if you're watching in the replay. We want to try and broaden these contexts as much as possible. The objective being that we can bring to you a lot of aspects from the multitude of people who do different varieties of healings and different businesses. Oh, hello, Louise, or is it Lewis? I'm presuming it's Louise Poulton. Good morning. That means that you're overseas somewhere, probably in America, I would think, or England or something like that. Thank you for dropping in. It's always a pleasure to have somebody from. Just let us know in the comments where you're from so that we can give a shout out for you. As I was saying, if you can share with other people, it's always good, and it broadens the aspect, and we try to offer as many opportunities for people to come on board and offer something to other people. Now, if you happen to have something that you can share with others in the way of whether it's mental, physical, or spiritual healing of some description, this could be anything from counselling to white light therapies, Reiki healings, and the like. Please contact me at roy@moonandmask.com.au. This being Ontario, Canada. It is good morning over there. I hope you have some information for me because we're just starting out here with 5G, and tonight we are going to look at 5G. The object here being that the person we were hoping to get on has some great knowledge on 5G, and we are just starting out with 5G here in Australia. So there's a lot of questions at the moment as to whether it's ethical to be doing 5G, whether there are health benefits or health problems to come. Thank you very much, Michelle. I'm happy that you have managed to share that. If you have any questions tonight, please put them in the comments. We're trying to facilitate between a person who has some great knowledge on 5G and I'm trying to find questions and concerns of people about 5G. There is a great deal of misnomers and false information that's running out there at the moment, and it's hard to tell just exactly what is correct and what is unknown and what could be seriously dangerous for people. From what I've seen on some of the YouTube channels, places like South Korea are already saturated with 5G. They're probably the only country in the world that I'm aware of at the moment that is fully 5G ready. There are a lot of benefits in the way of speed for your internet downloads and that kind of opportunity there. But most of the problems that I have heard about are not so much coming from the actual 5G internet. There's a lot of people who are saying it's the towers and the limited band space of the the bandwidth, at least, of the 5G that's the problem. It seems that with 5G there is a necessity to have a lot more towers. Now, these towers are not necessarily huge towers. If you look around Adelaide and Sydney and a few of the other places, you'll find the towers themselves are relatively small, and in a lot of cases they are using 4G towers as they are at the moment. And from that angle, it's not going to be a great change. The concerns seem to be that it's going to have to be multiple 5G towers spread out in such a way as to link in so much so that if you turn a corner and you go in a specific direction, you may lose one tower, but you can connect with another tower. And in one of the YouTube videos that I was watching today, which came out of America, I'll just have a look here and see if I can find a particular YouTube channel so that we can have some idea. Now, I'll just copy this and put it into the comment area for people that are interested. It's only it's a very short video, so it's not huge by any means. This gentleman in particular was testing 5G in one of the universities in America where they have a 5G aspect and towers that are close to a university. And from his description, at the very underneath the pole where the unit is, there was some unbelievable speeds on the internet which prevented buffering problems and the like on the phone. But you have to have a 5G phone. Now, if you've got a 4G phone, you're not going to get the benefits of 5G. It's just not going to happen. The phones, even though they will say 5G, they might say, I think it's 5GE, in which case that will generally mean that it's simply 4G at a slightly faster pace. You won't be suffering the so-called microwave technology from a 4G phone. It's only later this year, possibly mid-year next year, before we will see proper 5G phones coming in through Australia. Even though Telstra is offering the Samsung 10 and I think there's another one of the Huawei's is now 5G ready. And even here in Australia, we don't have a large area that is 5G. And one of the other things that we don't have here is the optic fibre, which will, in truth, regulate the 5G to households. So if you have, as they are planning at the moment, a copper connection, copper cannot handle the 5G network going through it. So you would need to have some sort of 5G tower almost on top of your house to benefit from the 5G when it comes in. There's a great deal of confusion as to what is and isn't going to be good for us and what's going to be bad for us. I've heard a lot of people who have spoken about the health aspects of 5G, and it's not clear. I don't think it's the actual 5G network itself that is the problem. There is something to do with the collector boxes on the side of the houses where the 5G will be generated, and a lot of the linked machinery. Again, we come back to the fact that the machinery that you have now in the way of washing machines, microwaves, these will eventually be connected to the Wi-Fi. Your printer is connected to it. And again, if you don't have a 5G printer, then you're not going to get the 5G into the response of the particular unit, because it can only accept 4G and at the best a very fast 4G, but it's not going to offer anything more than a faster speed for a 4G unit. So you would have to go out and buy a printer, scanners, cameras, and all of these will have to be 5G orientated and 5G ready before you will even begin to see the speeds that you're anticipating by 5G. It will be faster, and that is one of the benefits of 5G. But the other side of the coin is that we are not being kept up to date with what the health effects are of very short wave modulations by 5G. It's very close to the modulations of the microwave. It's getting very close to that, and that's probably more of a worry than anything in the house, is to have the 5G aspects roaming through the buildings. And because of the closeness of these towers, you'll be constantly walking through or being bombarded by these very short wave modulations and frequencies. And nobody has a clear indication of what sort of problems this is going to bring in the near future. I'd like to think that the traffic lights and these cars that they're talking about, which will be self-drive and they will be Wi-Fi ready, they will benefit from these 5G aspects. But we are still uncertain as to how the 5G aspects are going to relate to our physical wellness. The one that sort of caught my eye here is the YouTube, the 5G extinction event. It talks a lot about the health aspects of what can go on with the closeness of the towers and the benefits and health problems that are likely to present themselves during the phases of the coming in. But is it likely to cause us huge problems at the moment? Honestly, I don't know. Some of the American cities are vying very heavily not to have it brought in close to small children. This would be kindergartens, preschool, and the like. Let's have a look at this question here. Hello, Scary. Will planting lots of trees help, or being surrounded by a real lawn? Well, from one of the things that I saw in an area where they were doing it was a video on 5G testing. They had a specific area set up for trials here in Australia. I'm not sure whether it was Sydney or Melbourne. And they had the 5G set up with 4 or 5 towers, and they looked at the houses in the area that they had planned. And they found that the external receiver boxes on the outside, which controls, it's like your Wi-Fi and a power box. And honestly, I'm not familiar with a lot of the technical terms, but what they found was the plants around these units were dying. They were simply being microwaved by the amount of small, very small vibrational modulation of the energy that was coming out of the box. And if that's any indication of what happens to us as we walk through this, I would want to know a little bit more about the health aspects. Austria at the moment is trialling a system over there. I can't remember the name of the city, honestly. I will put up another. I think I've got the other. I think that's the third one. I'll put that up here. No, this is another one on the dangerous experiment on humanity, which is 5G wireless. There is a particular one on YouTube on the Austrian trials. There is a company there which has bought out a cable company, and they are bringing optic fibres and 5G to Austria. Overall, I think if it's done correctly, we can assume that they are looking at the health aspects. But I think it's a lot of countries are looking at the fact that it will improve internet speeds. They can transfer data a lot quicker, and they're looking at the business aspects and not the community aspects, which frightens me a little bit, because business likes to make money, and they will present themselves and they will present the knowledge that they have in a format which is beneficial to their business. And a lot of the telcos, even Telstra here, will welcome 5G because of its speeds and what it can do for the homeowner and businesses, and the aspect of the future, which is robotics in companies, self-driving cars. Along this area, it's very beneficial, and they would probably do everything in their power to make sure that they get through the benefits of this to the governments and the financial aspects that will be affected by the governments. Will they want us to know what it can do to us? Probably not. Raising our vibrations is one thing, but I think the greatest problem is with the number of towers that they're talking about. There will be no point at which your body can rest. You'll be saturated by these vibrations from the time you walk out of your front door and you walk to work, or you catch a bus to work, or you get to work. Unless you're actually in the country, I think you are simply going to walk through 5G from the time you get up in the morning to the time you go to sleep, and you'll still be saturated with some form of vibration during your sleeping period as well. Raising our vibrations is a wonderful thing, but I'm not sure that that is sufficient to counteract the very close wave modulations that they're talking about. And if these external panels that they have on the houses now are any indication, there's a lot of energy coming off of this that, to me, long term is not going to be good for the human body. So how do we stop it? I don't know. We could all get together and ban 5G, but I guess probably the only thing at the moment that you could do is not trade up your phone to a 5G, not change your Wi-Fi, your modem, printers, anything that is connected to, for instance, your like your Google House, where everything is run by your mobile phone and you can just press a button and change the lights and do all that. If you're running that on 5G, you're going to be saturating yourself in 5G energy. And I must state here again, I do not know the physical aspects that may be involved in this. I was hoping to be talking to a doctor, just give me a second, I'll get the name, a Dr. Bandara, Bandara, about 5G. She's done a lot of research on the on the workings of 5G and its health aspects. What I'm trying to do tonight is to get some questions and concerns by people so that we can ask these questions when we do get somebody on. Even if we don't get Dr. Bandara to come on, we are still trying to get somebody who has some pretty good knowledge on 5G and its aspects. And I'm trying to get questions, concerns that we can put forward and find out just exactly what the real answers are. As you can see, I put up 3 video aspects from YouTube. You're more than welcome to tap into those and have a look. There's a lot more. Some are on the good side, some are more hair-raising than others. And I really haven't put some of the real hair-raising ones up there because I'm not sure how accurate they are. I've tried to cover both sides of the argument, and if you have the opportunity to see the one from Austria, tag into it. I don't think I put that one up. And it's done by a telco in Europe at one of the Europe telecommunication fairs. What I was most surprised about is the fact that South Korea is totally immersed in 5G at the moment. And there is some questions being asked as to increases in health products and health problems by the people using 5G. So there's no real numbers at the moment on this. And I guess we've got to sort of hang out, hopefully, for a while yet before we see a full 5G in Australia. Hopefully they have somebody who is continuously monitoring these things overseas to see what sort of aspects might pop their head up in the near future. Now, I'm trying to get up a specific picture, but it doesn't seem to want to come. As I said, these towers that are out, they're not very big. Some of them are not much bigger than your normal Wi-Fi setup, your normal modem. It's just the case that the frequency is a lot smaller and the number that they are going to have is going to be hugely different. I don't know whether I finished mentioning the guy that was in America. He said that while he was under the pole of the 5G unit, that they got some brilliant responses. The speed was unbelievable. The download capacity was great, but he also had a similar phone that was 4G, and the numbers that he was getting on the 4G, although greater, were not in the gigabyte range, but in the megabyte range. So it's just a faster version. You can't get 5G on a 4G phone. But he also said that as he moved a couple of 100 meters away from the tower, unless you have complete direct line of sight, that you lose a lot of the availability of 5G. So if it has to go through buildings or trees or anything else, you may find that 5G is lessened greatly by the fact that it has to pass through these objects. So that could be a deciding factor in where they place the 5G towers, and also how many towers that they will need to put up. Also, there was a mention that rain, and admittedly here in Australia we don't get heaps of it because, at least in the lower end of it, we're a very dry country. But it has been noticed that countries such as England and Europe, where they get more rain than us on a regular basis, they have found that the 5G has a tendency to drop off during heavy rainstorms. So this too will seems to influence the 5G. So there are still problems that they need to look at and work upon. I'm not seeing any questions, so I really can't answer much. but I would love it if somebody could give me some questions that they would like to see answered so that I can keep a record of this and offer it to our guests when they come on about 5G. And it seems to me that there's a lot of people who don't know a lot about 5G, and to be truthful, I'm probably one of them. But from what I've seen in the last 2 days in YouTube and the like, it begs to be asked whether we are doing the right thing or not. For industry, it's going to be a great boon. For the individual, honestly, I'm not sure. It's one of those things that is a little bit scary at this point because of the lack of information, and even the government is not handing out a lot of information on 5G. And it seems that when they first started 5G, they blew the damn thing up. So it's still questionable as to whether all of this will happen in the next 2 years. As I've mentioned already, if you have a 4G phone, then you're unlikely to get the supreme speeds that are going to come from the 5G network. If you could type HEAL, if you're interested in seeing these shows, that would be appreciated. Type it into the comments, and hopefully my little bot will catch up with you. If not, then I haven't done it properly, and I'll have to have a look at it. But excuse me. 5G is a misnomer at the moment. It's something that we all really want, and we're not sure we want it or why we want it. The benefits are immense in the way of being, for, say, argument's sake, in the way of health, in the sense that a doctor might be a specialist in Perth, and there is somebody in Sydney who needs a major operation, and the doctor in Perth is the only person that can do it. And so a robotic arm and a doctor setup in Sydney could be done from Perth in real time on 5G. Now let's have a look. Mary, what have you written? Would they also be using it as a big brother also? Must be a reason other than better network doesn't gel with me. There are aspects of this, Mary, where, like for instance, your speed cameras and the like, they would be 5G. Some of them already are incorporated into the towers, and this would, in essence, offer the police a far clearer picture because it's a lot quicker. Even though they're not down to the nanosecond yet, it would be quick enough that a lot of these cars that are speeding would not be able to get away with it as much as they do now, because the speed of the 5G would pick it up so fast that they could play it back at a slower speed and much easier get a collection of both the driver and the vehicle and the number plates on the vehicle. There are other aspects which are a little bit in the cloud, so to speak, at the moment, in the sense that some of the programs that we use, such as Google, Facebook, YouTube, especially I think YouTube, where they have information which relates to when you look at a screen, it taps into your camera, and it will set up an action which it believes that you want to see something based upon where your eyes are, how long you look at something. All of this is possible in the future, in the sense that the government could have aspects along that way. It would certainly make it a little bit safer in airports, I think, because of the aspect of 5G and facial recognition. Now, the question, I guess, for me is, what are we giving up in order to get that extra little bit? Until we hear about the aspects from South Korea and maybe Europe, because I think they'll probably have more 5G than we will, a lot quicker than we will. So we need to keep an eye on these countries to see what sort of health aspects suddenly start showing up. If they start having more people who have perhaps lung disease or kidney disease or something which might be put down to a form of radiation, then the government, it's a no-win situation really, because I mean the government's not going to generate forms which say, oh, we've suddenly had an influx of radiation in a particular area. As we've seen in the past, there have been areas in Sydney and also in Adelaide where the dumping of waste has led to chronic disease in a particular area, and the government has been aware of it because they've had to facilitate all the paperwork that goes into the dumping of these products. So they would have known that these things were in the ground or in this area, and they have not bothered to tell anybody about it. So are they likely to tell us that we suddenly have an influx of pancreatic items caused by microwave radiation or shortwave radiation from 5G? Probably not. You would be looking at the doctors, nurses and the like to be coming forward and telling us that these things are happening. And as with anything, even the chemical companies are not going to tell you, based upon the fact that there's probably tablets out there that they are sitting on the shelf waiting to use, and they think this may be a money-making idea. It's a catch-22. It's an interesting question, Mary. Vaccinations are a necessary evil, but it just seems that every year there's more vaccinations. And even though microchipping is not yet on the agenda, I can't say they're not doing it. It's a possibility that a microchip could be done at the same time as a vaccination. And it is, I don't want to get into the sense that Big Brother is constantly watching, and I use the term Big Brother in the use of some of the programs and series that have been on TV. It's possible that if there were microchipping, the government could be more aware of where people were or what sort of grades they were getting and that sort of thing, because we now have these regular educational testing to see where your child is in the educational field, and I think that's scaring a lot of children at the moment. But it is an aspect which the government can tune into and can see what they may believe to be virulent behaviours in children. And sometimes, I'm sure that you're aware, I certainly know when I was growing up, we used to beat each other up something fierce. But most of the time you grow out of it. It's it's an opportunity for the government to change the way that they do things, and perhaps they can get more information without being noticed with 5G because of its speed. I don't know. Yeah, that's all hearsay and theory. We don't know. Microchipping and the like is also a possibility, but there has been no clear sense of anybody being picked up by microchip through exams or examination. There is, however, a microchip which they use at the moment for people who have very serious complaints. They might be heart complaints or serious epilepsy or something along that line. And rather than having to press the button, you might be incapacitated. And the chip is there at the moment to notify the hospitals that you are in distress, health distress. Could the government do something like this? It's possible. It's always possible. We just don't know. But I think I think we're pretty safe in Australia, because it seems that our politicians are more interested in keeping themselves in power than they are in what is happening to the public and what the public want. So that would be a bit of a question, I would think. If you've just joined in, we're talking 5G. Our guest for tonight was not able to make it due to prior arrangements. We're looking for questions and concerns that people may have in relation to the upcoming 5G. Hi, Yvonne. Lovely to have you on board. Hope you are enjoying the evening, and it's such a lovely warm evening here in Adelaide again. But yeah, it's a bit of a worry. I'm uncertain as to what could be picked up by the government with the new 5G. I know they would like to reduce jobs in the form of robotics, and even on the buses they are trialling driverless buses now. Most of the cars that are coming out of Europe have the ability to be autonomous. So in that aspect, it is a good safety aspect, but it still doesn't answer the question of what the higher frequency does to the human body. There are some brilliant benefits to be had from 5G, and I will openly admit that. But I'm just not certain that the outcomes that they're asking for technology is enough to offset what we may be giving up. So, yeah. So, let's have a look here. Okay, I've done some reading on the 5G. Lovely. So, give us a question. It can cause long-term health problems. Yes, but what are the health problems? That's the question where we're debating at the moment, Yvonne. Yes, a lot. Are they related to the frequency, or are we talking intestinal problems? Are we talking heart problems? Are we talking things like Alzheimer's or mental aspects that because their brains may be getting fried by the electronics? These are the questions that we need to ask. There has been some there's been some questions as to whether 5G might have a greater effect on the neural transmitting of the brain. Because of its sensitivity, it may be more susceptible. Oh, okay, all of them. Great stuff. I look forward to that. And this is one of the questions that I'm going to write this one down, because hopefully when we get somebody we can ask this. What are the, we'll say physical aspects related to 5G. As I said, the industry themselves will be delighted to have 5G because they can simply have a wonderful Wi-Fi setup that can handle the speeds. But I think here in Australia, especially here in Adelaide at the moment, business is going to be... Oh, hello. That's an interesting... Taya. Hello, how are you? Glad to have you on board. We're talking 5G, concerns and the like. So if you have any concerns, please let us know and we will write them down so that we can ask the proper questions at the right time. Now, I think I got out of that slightly what I was talking about. Yeah, industry. I think they're going to be shocked because we use copper cabling. And to get the best results for industry, they are going to need optic fibre. So they might get a nasty shock. Yes, it will be coming to all homes, but I don't think it's going to be an immediate thing. It's going to take at least a couple of years for the 5G towers to become sufficient that a lot of people can get 5G. It will probably be at least another 12 months before the phones and the modems are set up. Even though they've said that they're ready, they're 5G ready, a lot of the modems that are out there at the moment are not 5G ready. The last time they tried this, they blew the things up. Now we have Tiff. Look, if you want to tune in next week for a healing, I will be doing some more sound healings and aspects on sound healing. So please, if you have the opportunity for next week to drop in, tune in for that one. But unfortunately tonight we're talking about 5G and its related aspects. The majority of installers have been diagnosed with brain tumours and cancers, which can be quite disturbing, especially as the towers in the city are apparently going to be 100 metres apart. I would say that's probably due to the fact that you really do have to have line of sight for these towers, even though they're not huge, and the spaces between may be shorter, but that's basically because the waves that are coming off of these units degrade very rapidly. So I'm not sure whether it's 100 metres or 200 metres or 500 metres, but they will be relatively close. And for me, that's probably the aspect which is most scary. If these things are doing physical damage to us or affecting our neurology and our brain patterns, then we are constantly going to be walking through these. And as it's going to be line of sight, it's going to be a case of we're never out of 5G. We're never out of this. 7:30 next week, Adelaide time. I'm not sure where you're from, Tiff, or is it Chris? I'm not sure which one is the first name. Let us know where you are, Tiff, and we will. I can give you a better idea of what time I will be on, because we're Australian Central Standard Time. So, right, and Yvonne, what I mean is it will come through our walls, so we will be affected health-wise. That's probably not totally accurate, Yvonne. From what I understand of 5G, you might be saturated from the aspect of your Wi-Fi or your mobile phone or all the stuff that is connected to your Wi-Fi. That will be generating 5G energy. coming through the walls is probably not as accurate as we would like to think. It is lessened greatly by having to go through buildings, and that's why line of sight is very important. I'm Tiffany. Well, my partner and I have a shared account. I'm from Queensland. Lovely to have you on board, Tiff. Yeah, tune in next week at 7:30. So I guess that'll be, about 9 o'clock your time, I think, somewhere around that. I will be doing a discussion and some sound healing with bowls. There'll be crystal bowls and Tibetan bowls next week. It's lovely to have you on board. Please tell your friends and family that this is on, and if they're interested in healing, that's great. And something else, maybe you're up there and you can help us out as well, Tiff. I'm just going to go back up here for a second. Please excuse my having to jump in and out. No, I can't even find it now. Gee, I'm doing well, honestly. There we go. If you know somebody up there, Tiffany, that has something to offer that might be different, it could be energy work, it could be counselling, it could be Bowen therapy, it could be anything. So long as it will help other people healing, then we are interested in having those people come on board and spread the word, so to speak, and help other people. And thank you very much. It's awesome to have you on board as well. Thank you very much for tuning in and watching. I'm always happy to have people come in from anywhere in Australia. The objective of this is to help people all over Australia, and being as this will go to Binge TV, it will also go overseas. It won't go over straight away, but it will certainly end up overseas in the next month or two on Binge TV. So keep an eye out for that if you have Binge. Yeah, I'm sorry, I got a little bit sidetracked there, but that's one of the things that being live does for you. Now, going back to Yvonne and going through the walls, you lose a lot of the wavelengths going through walls, and so it will be that transition between the exterior service that the government provides and your modem, and from your modem will come your 5G. So basically what they're saying at the moment is, if you don't upgrade your modems and your mobiles, your printers and your mobile phone apps to handle 5G, you will not get the high radiation and the high frequency that 5G presents. But in the end, all houses will eventually have 5G unless it is proven that there are serious medical problems, and only then, I would think, will you have the ability to, thank you very much, Tiff, will have the ability to make some form of claim against 5G. For me, if it's in a business aspect where a company is using it for their robotics and stuff like that, this is short term. If you have to work there, you might work there for 6 to 8 hours, and that's an aspect that I think, from the point of view of the human body, we could probably mitigate over the rest of the day. But if we're going to be coated in this high frequency when we drive along 5G roads for autonomous vehicles, if we're going to be suffering from walking through this 5G amplification when we go to the shops because the businesses are running videos and electronics along the way. Imagine walking into Harvey Norman's on 5G. that in itself, I mean, they've got 20, 30 TVs running at 5G. So their 5G variants would be huge. And that in itself is another scary aspect. The more of these things that are working means the more 5G that is going out there. But to all intents and purposes, it is supposed to be the external unit which monitors and controls all of the 5G in the house, which is not so much the Wi-Fi, but the external use on the outside of the house, which transitions from the exterior to the interior, is the thing which is most likely to cause this great problem. Here we go. Cynthia. 5G has been released without public comment, somewhat under the cover of night. Norway trialled 5G and all the birds fell out of the sky dead. It messes up marine sonar and it is downright dangerous to overall health and population. 5G can and will be used to facilitate a threat, the threat of war through satellites. They know how the human psyche cannot tolerate this level of exposure to microwaves. We have enough trouble with 4G. There is a great amount of information on the internet on stations like Gaia. And that is absolutely correct. Thank you, Cynthia, for putting that up. Gaia does put out some very good information. There's still a lot that we don't know about 5G. The aspects that I've mentioned tonight, and if you watch this in replay, please take the time to connect with the 3 YouTube sites that I've put up there. You only have to press the link to get a look at those particular sites. And thank you, people, for commenting tonight. Actually, I'm going to take a couple out of that tomorrow, Cynthia, and I'm going to write down a couple of those. There's another aspect that I really haven't gone into tonight, and one which has only recently been mentioned. We talk about plastic in sea life and the like, and there is some mention that 5G, if it is constantly bombarded from land to water, could irradiate the water, sending a different form of radiation in the chemicals of the water, because we flush a lot of our chemicals with the water into the ocean. These irradiated chemicals could have an adverse effect on local fish life. Now, as we're pretty much aware, if you kill off the local fish life, then things like migrating whales will cease to show up because there's no food for them to connect to. There's no small fish, there are no larger fish coming down, and the sharks will start using us for bait because we're probably the only thing that can stand up to it. But I'll have a look around and see if I can find more on this Norway thing. That's a little bit interesting, and I hope there's something out there on this, on the birds dying due to 5G generated energies. Again, that would be interesting only to find out what sort of bandwidth they were using at the time. So, as I have mentioned, next week, if I can find it, I'm going to press it first. There we go. Next week, we will have me. Sorry. I will be doing some sound healings or sound work next week. So this will involve perhaps some drums, just going over some of the things that we can use for people who are looking for relaxation, lacking in relaxation from anxiety and stress and the local stresses, just working day to day. And I will try and explain as best I can the differences in the bowls, the types of things that you might look for if you go for a sound healing or a chakra balancing or something along those lines. If there is anything at all that you would like to see, we had one last week that requested something, and we have put that on our long list of people to search out and get in contact with. And I would love to hear from more people on what they would like to see on healing within, and maybe if not people, then the problems that we can look at, so that we can say that a particular problem could be helped by such and such, and we have groups that might well be able to help. Also, as I said before, if you know of somebody who has something that they are good at, this could be anything from, say, body lotions, healing lotions, it could be crystals, it could be therapies, it could be counselling, it could be problems such as bullying or sexual abuse, racial abuse, any of these. These are topics that if we can find answers for, then we can possibly find people who can answer some of the questions on these topics. I'd like to say thank you to everybody that has bothered to put comment in tonight. I appreciate it immensely. And as you can see by the title there, it's Roy Fensom from, Dixie King. Hello from New Zealand. Appreciate you having on board. I'm sorry you may have dropped in at the wrong time. I'm pretty much close to closing out, but I love the fact that you've dropped in. And if you wish, please wait about another 10 minutes or so, and it should be available in replay. And you're more than welcome to leave comment on the bottom of it if you so desire. I'm going to go back to Cynthia because she has put another comment up. They took photographs at the bottom of the radio tower, a transmitter, and there were dead birds laying all around it. It was quite a harrowing picture, quite a dire warning. That may well be due to the fact that these birds may have chosen to use it as a landing pad, which we often see birds doing on telegraph lines and the like, which would suggest that the radiation or the frequency that they are putting out is not beneficial for the human people. Yeah, we could probably look into the benefits of CBD. Yep, we will look at that, all right. Benefits of CBD oil. All right, I will look into the opportunity for somebody to give us a talk on that. That would be great. Thanks, Dixie, for giving us another shout out. I'm sure that, and thank you very much for sharing it. It's brilliant that you've done that. And I look forward to the fact that you tune in. And if you think that there's something out there that you'd like me to talk about more or get somebody to talk about, please, as I've said in pretty much 6 or 7 times tonight, let us know or what the topic is or what the person is, and we will do our utmost to get something on about that. And the fact that those birds have died, I'm going to be looking into that. I want to see the pictures, and it doesn't surprise me that those birds did die around those towers. They may be unfamiliar. And for a bird, I don't think it would take much radiation to microwave a pigeon or a bird if they were unaware that it was happening at the time. So, small brain, it could be that they microwaved their brain in a very short time. In any case, people, thank you very much for joining me tonight. I appreciate your comments. I look forward to the fact that you might be on again next week for Healing Within 25. We will be discussing sound healings and Tibetan bowls, crystal bowls, and also maybe chakra healing and the like. So maybe we can get 1 or 2 healings done. And this will be something that we can discuss, and you can keep an eye out for people who do this. So tune in again next week. That will be Wednesday evening at 7:30 Australian Central Standard Time. And we will look forward to having you then. Good night, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Roy Fensom from Healing Within, and I look forward to seeing you next week.